got a great season of Writers Roundtable planned out, and today's episode is really going to be about how research and references and citations can actually help you as a writer. And I am not only talking about nonfiction, I'm also talking about fiction research. So this is going to be a really fun episode, and other folks who also are writers may be stopping in at various points. I don't know. Megan will only be with us for a little bit. In theory, who knows? I don't know. It's kind of a chaotic day. I'm just going to be honest. Today is kind of chaotic. I realize I apparently touched my my webcam at some point in the last day or two. So well, I'm going to have to clean that in a moment. Because I have this lovely fuzzy sort of soft filter going. I don't know how that happened.
Ethereal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But we have a great episode planned. Super fun stuff. I can't wait for you to hear everything and see what you think in the chat. And to help me today, there is, of course, Tom. You know him. I love him. He is our producer and my brother. And then there is Megan. Megan, who also loves research and references, who loves scouring all sorts of resources for information, just like I do. You know, I honestly kind of wonder if it's possible to be a happy writer without enjoying at least a little bit of research. Like, I'm not saying you have to do a lot of research to write, because let's be honest, we're writing fiction. It's like, man. But, you know, it's just like Tom said in the title of this YouTube episode. Research is a great way to deal with writer's block. I mean, it's not the only way to deal with it, but it definitely can be helpful. So, what do y'all think?
I think that I love research. It's one of my favorite things. I even have in my Notion on the web app, I have an entire section just for all the research I do, for any interesting tidbits I find on the internet. I put names that I come across that I think are interesting and could be useful for a writing project. I put everything I can in there, and keep it nice and organized. And it's I definitely enjoy having all that information at my fingertips in a way that I can easily access and sort through and manipulate the information and whatnot. So that is my initial thought.
What do you think?
I think most, as we talked before about, even when we're talking about movies, which are just another form of storytelling, but all storytelling is contemporary, because stories relate to the audience they are targeted for and made for, and that's always the present. We do not make stories for the past people. We do not make stories for people that will come. We make them for the audience that is now. And research is where we get those ideas of what is it people want to think about. Because stories are how, we sort of learn emotionally stuff. And that's what I think, research often isn't used for enough, is what are the interesting ideas? What's the DSM people currently dealing with in the what is dysfunction and what is perfectly normal function in society?
Mm-hmm.
What are they talking about for revisions for the future DSM? And I only found out recently that, and I'm embarrassed, but I didn't realize DSM-5 tax revision had removed addiction. It doesn't exist in DSM.
Mm-hmm.
Because they now understand it better, and it's no, that's not actually what's going on with the brain. Here's what we do know. Research is where we get ideas. That is, I know Gloria and I both share our love of Terry Pratchett is Terry Pratchett was a journalist in education, like how he had been trained and taught. And so the stories he wrote about was, were heavily influenced by journalism in real life. And then he just put it in a fantastical realm. And it made such interesting stories of research is where a lot of stories come from. That people are like, where do you get these? And it's like, I live. That's where I get my stories. Every day I get new story ideas.
Yeah, Terry Pratchett was a member of the Folklore Society in the United Kingdom. And while he was an active member, and I think at one point a board member, they published a dictionary of folklore, specifically of United Kingdom specific folklore. But also, like, let's be honest, it's still essentially a country with an incredible amount of coastline. So plenty of other people have sailed by and dropped off their folklore and, maybe picked up a couple ladies on the way. I'm just saying, it's a thing. Not all of them were taken unwillingly, it turns out. So that is wild, but good times.
Those Vikings, they're just so clean.
So clean, Tom. They're so clean and braided. And, those
they
English
smell
ladies
too nice.
are like, but for Christmas one year, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, I bought for myself as a Christmas Eve present the Dictionary of Cultural Folklore from the Society. And then I proceeded for that year to read it like a book. Like, don't judge. But just flipping through it, reading page after page, and realizing so much of what Terry Pratchett put in his Discworld novels is actually contained in the dictionary of folklore. Of everything I thought was just the most genius, sort of innovative, cool fiction ideas, he fully stole. And I realized, again, what makes somebody from a good writer to a great writer? And the answer is more than likely research.
I thought you were going to say stealing.
Stealing knowledge. But, I mean, we say stealing, but we don't really mean stealing because knowledge... all right. The hippie in me comes out here of I believe knowledge should be freely given. I understand people's time should cost, but the knowledge that should just be given to everybody. That's why I genuinely believe college degrees should be free. Because again, also, don't we want less ignorant people? I'm just saying, don't we? My grandma Marty, our father's mother, literally was a secret double agent for the NAACP. Because, as she put it, she hated ignorant N-words. And so she spied on the RNC because our Grandpa Rudy, was a regional director of the RNC at one point in the 50s and 60s. And she spied on the RNC for the NAACP. NAACP? Yes.
NAACP.
NAACP, yes. And recruited all these kids in Alabama and Mississippi to go to college. And would talk to their parents secretly in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. She has literally sneaked into sharecropper homes to, recruit high schoolers and young, people in their 20s and convince their parents to let their children go to college on full scholarships, on full rides. And it was because she hated ignorant people. Look, when she said it to me, she did use the N-word. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat my grandma. She was a problematic person. I'm not going to deny this. But she didn't mean she was really just talking about she does not like ignorant people. That was one of her real triggers. She hated how ignorant people can get, and they can just say things that come out of their butt, just drove her nuts. And she believed the solution was to get as many human beings into college, period. And this was something she could actually do. She couldn't get a lot of ignorant white folks into college. There is not organizations to help that. But, oh, well, I guess I should help each other. That's like literally, oh, a woman could roast. But, like, I can kind of understand the basic idea of let's stop being so ignorant. And one of the ways we can stop being so ignorant is by researching. Particularly reliable sources. One of the things I definitely do want to talk about is unreliable sources, platforms to avoid as a way to start vetting where you are getting your information from. And let's be honest, as writers, we're mostly looking up how to poison characters, how to kill them quickly, effectively, or slowly. It's a lot of mayhem that we're really researching a lot of the time, but nevertheless, let's have something semi-accurate, or if it's not accurate, we know it's not accurate. We're doing it on purpose so people don't maybe try to make a permanent solution to a temporary problem kind of deal, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, hi, Laura.
Hi.
Everybody else got to do their little bit about why they like research and reference and resources. Would you like a quick
On why I like research and reference stuff?
speak your heart?
Okay. Once upon a time, there was a little publisher named Laura who didn't have a lot of money, so I needed some ISBNs real quick. And had a super sweet research librarian at her beck and call named Glory. And she found me how to request the Canadian ISBNs because they are free for people in Canada. So she saved me a couple $100.
Nice.
Also, I love research because sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
So true.
So you can pull some weird things that happen into fictional worlds, and people are like, "How did you come up with that?" It's like, "Well, have you heard of this cult? Have you heard of this type of government structure?" Like, crazy stuff out there.
That is one of the things I used to like about watching CSI Las Vegas was almost every single death was something that actually had happened to a person. And I could just literally Google it and find all these. Because some of these were like, this is too wild. This absolutely cannot be real. But of course, I'm still going to Google it, like everyone. And I loved that, but also being able to read the further details that maybe they glossed over on the TV show or they just entirely avoided mentioning because it wasn't part of the storyline. But nevertheless, like, yes, it's truly a million ways to die. All the wild ways people can meet their end. And as a writer, that's interesting of like, people can do some wild things by accident or purpose that is like, really? This? Okay.
I also love research for things that take place in the real world. Like, I have an adult horror story that is on the way back burner. And it takes place in California in a slightly futuristic alternate version of California. But I wanted to know, like, the cave systems and how they're all structured and what type of plants grow around there. And so I was YouTubing cave diving tours and stuff. And so I could figure out what the cave structures and stuff look like around there. I found that there are, like, tunnels through the caves that people can go rafting through. And it's like, what is this? It's so cool. So I could, like, utilize it in my story. So that was really nice. And I haven't been to that part of California, but I know what it sounds like and what it looks like. I don't know what it smells like officially, but it's pretty close. So that was really helpful. Also, researching what has been done before with your specific genre can help to give you ideas of, so this is how this type of science is explained traditionally, or magic system is explained traditionally, or vampire lore is explained traditionally, and then go from there and be like, okay, so this is what people are expecting, so I know how much I need to elaborate if I am following strict, like, Dracula rules or like Twilight rules. Like, you can have shortcuts of, like, the audience should be expected to know. But then also you can get inspiration of how can I do this differently, and so you can figure out how to twist things and make them your own because you see the plot holes or the loops that can be exploited in the different types of stories that have been told already. And so you can have your retelling exploit those loopholes or tell it different, make it bigger, make it better and more awesome and just really, really fun.
One of the things that I noticed, and again, I know not everybody like watched Star Trek, I get it. But one of the things I noticed as a child watching like reruns of Star Trek and Next Generation is sometimes they, everything on these shows was filmed on sets. Like they did not ever seem to go on live locations, hardly ever anyway. But there were some times where the sets seemed really cool and fantastical and awesome. And then as I got a little older, because like you talking about the caves reminded me of anytime I was like, wow, they really outdid themselves with the set this time. Every single time, y'all, they stole from images of various caverns and caves and natural formations, mostly in America, occasionally in other countries, but mostly in America and American territories. And it just honestly, I guess because my first exposure to some of these cool formations and neat like sandstone designs was in something that I already as a child thought was cool. Like, don't judge me. I thought that Next Generation was cool, but in my defense, I was an actual child. And then to see, oh wait, they're real and I could visit them and they're in my country. It was like, wow, there's really beautiful nature and I don't have to go to other planets for it. It's right here. And it just made me think even more about it, as well as the fact that as writers, we can do the same thing. We can find cool locations that we could, in theory, visit, although I know writers don't like to leave the house. Let alone go on road trips.
Not the sunlight.
I was in the sun.
I did not even come back red as a lobster.
Oh my gosh! Like,
oh, you get your burn?
Not really. I did a
Okay.
sunscreen back there, but
Nice.
because I opted for the mini ears instead of a hat because
Yes,
over function, obviously.
obviously.
But yeah, we didn't even put sunscreen on until after lunch.
Oh, wow. But yeah, like to be able to see like the pictures, videos, YouTube is wonderful for that. To see these almost seemingly otherworldly locations that are actually on our world.
Goblin Valley in Utah.
Yes. Anything at Mount Zion National Park, in my opinion, is drop dead gorgeous and so freaking cool. I'm going to make it one day. Y'all don't need to worry that I'm going to die prematurely because I refuse to let loose this mortal coil till I have made it to Mount Zion. Yes, would you like to go to the cooler Grand Canyon? Can I interest you in Mount Zion? Like, the prettier Grand Canyon? Can I interest you in Mount Zion? I said it. But, like, to realize these places are real and that you can visit them, it really just kind of adds some excitement, I think, at least for me as a writer, describing these but placing them in a science fiction setting or a fantasy setting.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, what is that one, Tom, you liked her books when you were much younger, Tracy somebody, and she wrote with, or that maybe that was her male
Tracy
writer.
is he, Tracy Hickman.
Yeah. Tracy Hickman, what was the Mercedes Lackey? That there was that series that you had liked, and reading it, I realized those caverns, she was describing Carlsbad Caverns, y'all.
I've been there.
In a fantasy setting, but it was really cool because like this is where you have to go to these caverns to learn how to work this special kind of drum.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're trained and you spend in the dark practically for so many years, and it shortens your life. I don't know, something about worms. It was wild stuff, y'all. But nevertheless, like later I grow up and I'm like looking at videos. This was back when YouTube was really young. And they're like, here's our trip to Carlsbad Caverns. And I'm like, Mercedes Blackie described this in a book. But made it seem all mystical and cool.
Like we went to Leap Caves, Nevada, and it was so cool. We hiked down into there. There's all the stalactites and stalagmites and stuff, and then they turn off the lights, and so we're all in the complete pitch black. And they're like, "Your eyes will never be able to adjust because you have seen the sun." It's like, ah! Like you can hear like your blood in your ears, and like it's so cool. It was awesome.
One of my favorite thriller writers, Alex Connor, she does a lot of research, art history research, and she includes a lot of it in her stories. So you get every art piece that she mentions, except for like a few that are made by like the actual character, are like real paintings you can look up and see what they look like, and the techniques that the art techniques that she talks about, those are all like real techniques, and it describes real things, and it really brings the world to life, and the way she does it, it makes it a lot more scary. But research can really add depth to a story that might not necessarily be there without the research for it.
I agree.
I say a lot of the crazier elements that added the spice to Terry Pratchett Discworld stories turned out in, if you over time of, no, these were all things that really happened. These are all based on actual folklore because this is how humans think. And that is what research is really useful for, both fictional and non-fictional, is to understand how your readers will comprehend your story and so what they will be comfortable with. Because this whole, I want to be truly original does not sell because no one can understand it. They have no frame of reference. You want to work within the frame of reference of your readers.
Preach it, Tom. No reader wants truly original material. They want derivative because it's relatable, because they're already familiar with it, and they don't have to work so hard to paint it in their imagination. I mean, it's legitimate reasons readers prefer derivative work to completely original work. So, Tom, what shall we talk about?
Well, we have learned that we should start with positive before you go to negative.
Oh, okay. What you got? I mean,
I know our instinct is like, let's talk about all the stuff. Don't do this. Please stop doing this. Don't do that.
Well, but we have been talking about positive for 20 minutes.
I have more positives.
Yeah, Laura.
Even if you misspell something, you can still find something interesting.
That's true. But yeah, let's talk about the jumping off points for research. What are good places to start? And these may sound somewhat a little odd, but it's what has worked. So yes, Google and see what other people are saying, but even more so, Gloria and I were talking. Go check out Reddit and Quora. See what they're talking about. Check out Google Scholar. Gloria's favorite, because she likes to, see people's assumptions getting before their knowledge. Go look, what was it? Retraction Watch?
Okay, yes, I love Retraction Watch. I think it's retractionwatch.com or else it's .org. Let me see. Partly because the reason why I like, let's see, trying to spell Retraction Watch. partly the reason why I really like Retraction Watch is one of the most common things or reasons why papers are retracted is because other scientists and academics are able to prove that this paper is BS. And the way they're able to often prove it is the paper just confirms what are essentially, common held beliefs. And the meat and potatoes of the actual research, the numbers do not add up. Literally sometimes, which, excuse me, you can't conclude with 147% of something, like not in an academic research paper, y'all. So sometimes it's literal math. Like, so for instance, the research on austerity all eventually had to be retracted, and I believe some people may have lost their doctorates over it because they literally falsified their spreadsheet. And so when they finally were forced to release their spreadsheet 9 years after they originally published, and essentially the entire United Kingdom government had, put these things into play, and then and people were like, we're not getting the results the paper said we would get if we put in austerity measures, and forced these researchers to actually share their spreadsheet, which they had not done, which again is a flag. When they did, people were like, they literally made up numbers. These literally do not even add up at the bottom column here, let alone the numbers they put in each cell were also false. It was all pure fiction.
And you can tell when data is faked because humans have a tendency for what they think is random is never random.
Yeah, like if it's like statistically speaking, you're not gonna have the 60% of all your numbers end in 8. Do you see where I'm going with this? Of like, yeah, there should be approximately a relatively even scatter plot of frequency of numbers.
Or how these numbers never duplicate.
Right.
Versus actual randomness, you will have duplicates in the numbers. You will have, what a weird coincidence.
Yeah, I have had that actually from doing surveys. Like actually doing behavioral health field research surveys where I got 3 67s in a row. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble. But like, this was from going door to door and asking people to fill out these health surveys. And like, then I'm supposed to compute it. And yeah, 3 of my, literally, they were on the same block. These 3 different houses, they'd answer the door. And each of their results from their survey equaled 67. And I was like, oh shit. And I went and talked to my professor about this of like, look, so before I turn in my project, we need to talk. And she's like, okay, what do we need to talk about? And I showed her my raw data and she's like, oh, that's okay. And I was like, is it? She's like, they're literally on the same street. They're probably related. That's probably why their health surveys are nearly identical. You're going to get this, especially when you have people who live in proximity to each other or who are genetically related. They're going to choose similar things on a survey. But she's like, but what about, I'm trying to remember the S code? Did you get 95 or 98? Because those are the magic numbers in behavioral statistics, in human statistics. If it's any statistics that has to do with how humans behave, it's called behavioral statistics. When we're talking about like other zoological, they have other words for to reference, but just so you understand, in statistics, when we're talking about humans, we always talk about behavioral because humans are apparently very narcissistic and we think we're the only ones who behave and everyone else is instinctive, whatever. Okay. But yeah, anyway, but she's like, as long as you crunched your numbers and you still got somewhere either 95 or 98 confidence, you're fine. Which I did. Like, it was like, it really falls in. That S curve just falls straight in correctly. when you are entirely accurate in your research and your field data about human beings, and you didn't influence anybody or fudge your numbers, there are certain things that humans will always come out to, and they have like algorithms and they have equations to get there to show the confidence percentage.
And
And
if
that's what
and
we're talking about with the 95. There's, I think, also 92, which is less confident. Like that's like essentially the barely, like there may be no actual connection. It may just be a coincidence, like a correlation, but not a causation. But causation, 95 or 98, is the magic numbers you're looking for in confidence. And so when you're talking about a paper where not a single number ever repeats, that actually is a flag. And that's what I like about Retraction Watch. They'll actually explain to you in the paper, in the article, why somebody flagged this thing.
And you'll see the same in religious and spiritual beliefs and views of you should see overlap, you should see repeat, and you should see spooky similarities. So like, why you see pyramids across the world is because it's an easy shape to make that is stable.
Spoiler, it's not aliens.
What?
Like,
I was led to believe.
Do you hear the fake umbers?
Just like you should also
people can make huge, like enormous structures. Okay. Also, it's some racism. Like,
also
but it's not aliens.
you will have some form of worship either for or against thunder and lightning. It's if all your cultures, only one of them has an interest in thunder and lightning and none of the others do, that's a weird group of cultures.
But like they're always going to explain thunder and lightning. Like just about all human cultures or humanoid cultures are going to, because you can't ignore it. And it's like everybody has to interact with the thunder and lightning at some point,
and and you'll have a fertility god or goddess of some form.
And a creation myth.
Yeah. Because it's just need and necessity for humans. It does not mean all these cultures talk to each other and derived their views from each other.
Or that aliens came down and told every culture this set of here's how you be a human. Again, it's not a thing.
But you will see where most of them do, not all of them. And that's the part that shows this is real and this is correctly done, is it will be most, but not all. Just like we have biomes that repeat around the world that are far apart, and yet you'll see similar animals. It's because, convergent evolution. It's not that, God dropped off them from here and he moved them over to there because you need them in this place. Like, no, something will fill that niche. Of like, what was it? One of those NPR or PBS YouTube ones recently did one on animals, and it was essentially, and I really feel like they missed out not making the Pokemon reference of the animal that is the living inspiration for Eevee.
Oh yes, Eevees.
Because they got to Madagascar, I think, and they took over a lot of niches, and they diverged from each other as much as possible. Versus, instead of convergent, they diverge like crazy, that you can barely tell they're related in any way. You'll see this variance and you'll see this similarity. And the part where you see where someone's like, oh, it's all random, and none of it overlaps, that's where you should always be suspicious. And that's where our research helps us steer our stories of reminding us of here's what really happened, so we can use this in our stories and it can happen in your story too. You don't even have to give credit to the real life events.
So also it helps to talk to people around you, because you don't know what they're super interested in what they've majored in, what they've hyper focused on in the past. Sure. They may be a wealth of information. You just start talking to them. Like my sister is in the medical field, and so I talk to her about all my wacky science and some of my stories. She's great at picking up plot holes.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's really fun. Just talking to people. And like I've talked to Nick now, who is a therapist, and so they are helping me try and psychoanalyze my main characters so that I get them to respond to their trauma and like actually like, you know, have it affect them convincingly. Helpful.
Yeah.
Helpful. But yeah, like talk to people. You never know.
Hey, Everett.
Hello, Everett, and hello, Anna, and hello, Laura, in the chat.
Hey,
And
Spence.
Spence and CB.
But yeah, like, and another one that, I am sure we're going to get we will see if anyone watches this because it is the du jour for complaints in the creative world right now.
Oh, the AI.
Yeah, go bounce some ideas off of something like ChatGPT and see what it responds with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as real creatives have been noticing and pointing out, it ain't going to create something to replace any of us anytime soon. But it is a good writer's room for getting further ideas. And
Tom, it's literally a later episode. Stop, like, ruining it.
But I mean, but there we will tell you really how to use it. But
Yes,
go
that's what we're
see,
gonna do.
converse, and see what it talks about. Because it'll just give you a sense of what's on the internet. And what the general, world gestalt ideas are.
Cannot believe you brought out the G word.
I have a Gestalt family in my story. They are not nice people.
I feel like ways you could tell that you know someone who's a writer and or a philosopher is anyone who knows what the words gestalt and ersatz means. Because at least in the 80s and 90s, writers abused the term ersatz for coffee. I know this is the alien world, but this is their ersatz coffee.
Right? Like, well, there's Ractigino or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And every writer of fantasy or science fiction in particular put in ersatz coffee. And sometimes, what was it? When we were kids, we were middle school or high school, we actually read some fantasy sci-fi novel that we both really liked, and at the time we did not know what ersatz meant. And they just called it ersatz.
It was Pern.
That's it. And I was like, when we found out, it was just like, cheater.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's an anime that takes place in like an alternate fantasy world, and it says Attack on Titan. And there's a group of people that they all live in one area, and they come across something they have no clue what it is, but it's been boiling over a campfire, and they're like, "What is it?" It was coffee. I was like, "Oh, they don't have coffee in their world." Oh, yeah.
It's how you know you've got right. It's the one sign of a writer was involved in making this versus I say this with love, a marketer or something. Because when marketers write stories for marketing purposes, it is a different material. But when writers write any story, coffee will eventually be involved, or a strong cup of tea.
Yes, a strong.
They cannot leave those two drinks out. At least one of them must show up.
They didn't have coffee. But yeah, so slight spoiler alert for end of season 3, I guess.
I will say this, after watching the full story of Attack on Titan, bravo. Every season and every book of Attack on Titan, you keep thinking, oh, wow, this is as crazy as the story gets. No, it will always get crazier till the last chapter.
I haven't read it, and I'm waiting for the anime.
And I'm truly surprised because you know what? It actually ends up having internal logic. I was worried it was going to fall apart halfway through, but don't worry. They've got logic throughout. it works, but it will get it. It never stops getting crazier. Bravo to that writing.
There was
That's
moments
not
where I
easy
was
to keep
like,
up.
what? And then a season later, oh, that explains it. Oh, okay.
But yeah, every time you think this is as crazy as it gets, that one will get crazier. But yeah, I did love what is this thing? It smells weird.
I know, but like, it makes sense world building why coffee is there. Like, they're on an island, and
Yeah,
so people have
Certainly.
come and brought it with them, and so it's a hint, and it's so cool, and it's like, yes.
But I mean, let's be honest, just from like a reader writer perspective, you need to give your readers certain cultural touchstones that they can relate to. Coffee and tea are two of those things that, like, even if you've personally never drank it, you've smelled it, you've been around other people who've talked about it, who consume it, you've seen it in the stores, it is pervasive.
You know what that coffee aisle smells like.
Right.
Just so you know, the chocolate and the vanilla aisle.
Yeah, but not everyone on the planet grew up in or around brick homes. That is foreign, or adobe homes for that matter. Not everyone on the planet is familiar with these housing structures, but everybody knows about coffee and tea as beverage culture. Chocolate, everybody's heard of chocolate. Most people have had a taste at some point in their life, so they have some kind of memory to touch on, even if they've only had it one time. And when I say everyone, yes, I have watched those freaking, what is it, tribal eats, where like they're bringing in Bedouins who are coming through on their caravan migration pattern, and they're like, so Bob Ross and chocolate, what do you think? You know, like whatever. I've watched the videos of.
They're so adorable.
They are so cute and sweet. I love them. They're just the most wholesome people. But, going, I don't know who this Bob Ross is, but he is a good man. He is a good man. He is trying to help people bring beauty into their homes. This is a good man. Yeah, I'm like, oh, the wholesomeness. Or the other, one of the others, she's like, if you give me paint, I can paint like that. Whatever you want, I paint. I can paint that. You really can? I absolutely can. And they're like, 1 week later, here's the picture of the mural she painted in her house. Like, and I'm like, good on her. But, my point just being, as writers, we need to make for readers, if we're giving them a world that's not our contemporary world, we need to give them cultural touchstones that they can relate to, that they can anchor in as the reader. They can anchor in to be able to feel that they are relating to the world, relating to our world building, relating to our characters. And again, I understand, like, culturally, some of us may not consume chocolate or coffee or even caffeinated tea, but you can find other things. Seafood is a thing many people can relate to, even if they don't personally like it. Maybe they avoid it, but they know that, like, most of the world eats some form of seafood at some point.
And there's some form of chewy snack.
And crunchy stuff, crunchy, crispy. Everybody's frying something, y'all. That's just the nature of the 20th and 21st century.
I watched a video of people deep frying spiders to eat.
Laura, you can just retract that right now.
I can find it again if you want to see.
I am
The two women were like delicacies, and
Laura,
they were just preparing them and eating them.
I mean, it's one way to deal with your, anger and violence you feel towards certain animals.
I can't.
They were meaty.
Like, I realize that, like, crabs are supposed to be like ocean spider, but you know what? If land spiders tasted that good, I would be open, but they don't. Like crawfish, we call them mud bugs because they're, I think, what is
They're
it
an
called?
arthropod.
Yeah, crawfish are related to roly-polies or something.
Yeah. Roly-polies are not insects. They're arthropods.
Yeah.
That just went, you know what? We like it better on land.
The history, the evolution of roly-polies, y'all, is wild and crazier than fiction. That is the rabbit hole I have gone down. And why did I go down that rabbit hole? I blame the Emperor's New Groove. You know the scene. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Chomping into it.
I also love how
And I was like, are roly-polies edible? And then this history of the evolution, the 100 million years of the roly-poly, and they're like, roly-polies get around and like definitely change with the time. Roly-polies are about survival, but nobody could tell me definitively if they taste good because I am not going to find out personally. Like there are some things I'm not doing.
And it's another great source of inspiration is just finding out how people talk about the history of things. What was it? I think maybe it was Z Frank talking about hippos. And he, essentially because humans, we cannot help. Everything must be a story. We create stories of everything. He did bring up the part of hippos are more closely related to horses than they are whales.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Pigs are more closely related to orcas than they are hippos.
Mm-hmm. Because orcas are pigs that went back into the ocean.
Yes.
That pigs on land were like, you know what? I'm so tired of rooting around in dirt. Let's go hang out at the beach. And they eventually became orcas. What? What? Can you hear my age? What? Well, that's real. And if you don't believe me, I highly recommend the BBC documentary series, The Secret Life of Pigs.
And I have definitely caught a lot of sci-fi and fantasy writers basing their societies on the evolutionary story of various animals that seem similar but are in no way related.
Mm-hmm.
They just happen to have similar paths. And going, oh, I can turn this into cultures.
Or how about everything is crabs?
Or just go crazy and make them all seahorses.
The carcerization of everything.
The carcerization of why? Why does everything become crabs eventually? It's so weird. Also, that their feelers, that hair, those are all nerves.
Yep.
They're just, what is happening? I think about it
and
every time.
Someone's crabby,
save my crab before I eat it. Anyway.
So yeah, when you say something's crabby, yeah, it's an accurate depiction of, the
5
nerves are all exposed.
Carcinization cycles in Earth history, where what was it? The majority of the animals became crab-like. Yes, but also they're delicious with butter. Highly recommend.
Oh, the dude who made the crab rape video made a video game.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's a crab with a gun.
Well, have you seen those videos of the crabs with like little steak knives? Those are real videos. Those are real videos. And some of them are the crab picked up the steak knife that somebody put on the ground because Florida. And some of them, they give the crab a knife, but nevertheless, it's really hilarious seeing like little beach crabs with knives going, I will cut you.
Give me your butter or I can stab you. But
remember, all of it's research.
But yes, research is a great way to get inspiration. And you never know what it is. Like, it is truly have fun with your research and never block yourself off of, oh, no, I can only research about this part. And it's like, but what if the other part's interesting? There may be a reason you don't realize it'll relate to your story.
Yeah, like I was researching Slavic vampire lore on Wikipedia.
Oh, that sounds weird.
And so I read one sentence that entered in a whole new element to my story, and it's like now a side plot. And oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I've never seen it done before. So it was the concept of butterflies with the vampires. And I was like, well, I'm going to merge that with an anime I like called Bleach with the butterfly messengers. And so I'm going to merge those together and voila, new lore. So
I think my favorite bit of advice I could give in the first hour about research is embrace the rabbit hole that you feel the urge to go down.
Yes.
Like, yes, you still probably need to pick up the kids at a certain time or else the school will call. Yes, you may have time limits or access limits, like you can only use so much bandwidth or something. But whatever you can within your own confines, I would like to highly recommend that instead of going goal oriented of I need to research this and just find out this answer to this one question, but instead be open to, oh, but this looks interesting. Let me quickly just keep that tab open and go read that. Embrace the rabbit hole. You are Alice. Go down that rabbit hole. You do not know what adventures await you there, because you never know when, maybe for whatever your current story you're working on, maybe you don't use the information you gained from that rabbit hole, but later you might. Later you might be just thinking about it while you're washing dishes or washing a child or washing a dog and being like, what if octopus were manipulating us all from the ocean and had some sort of telepathic abilities and we're actually manipulating human history? We know they can dream and then they turn colors while they dream, which, by the way, that is some wild stuff and I think it's so cool, but also raver kids. Anyway, so...
By the way, this story idea has been used in a video game.
Okay.
Octopuses can telepathically control the satellites now.
But, also, because, the other part of research is then daydreaming about what you learned and letting your imagination just really have fun.
Yeah.
And tickle you.
But not entirely, because it was about alien cultures in the past, but it was still someone else found out about this and went, well, what else? What could happen? What would be a fun? I got a crazy story.
Honestly, I just love those videos though of octopus dreaming and they're changing colors, and they're not even synced up. Like various limbs are turning different colors, and it's like blinking, which I didn't even know octopus could change colors so quickly and modeled, this blotchy color. And it's like, that is amazing that a living creature on this planet can do that. And they're not even probably aware they can because they're sleeping and dreaming while they do it. But that is so freaking cool. But imagine if we could do it awake. I would wear some mesh hosiery that I could suddenly I'm the discotheque,
Yeah. It's
that would be cool.
I have my sister who's in the medical field. Her undergrad was environmental science. And so she knows about all these plants. And so I was grilling her about chlorophyll and incorporating them into all of the grooves and stuff in the exterior of a spaceship so it can charge when it goes by the sun. So it's not just
that's cool.
Hydrogen engine and stuff like that. It's really fun. And also I had a super specific question about how long did the courtship last in Victorian England? What was acceptable? I could not find it on Google. So I traipsed over to the research library and I asked a physical librarian and we looked it up on the records and we went through and we found 7 different books, pulled them off the shelves, but I found one paragraph in the last book that told me 6 months was acceptable. A year was acceptable. It's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Here we go. My story is okay.
Also, humans just really have not changed much in hundreds of years.
Yeah. So sometimes just go and ask a physical person in the library.
That is true. That is true. Well, we are going to take a little break, a little bio break. When we come back, what should we talk about, y'all? Anybody got opinions? Anything in particular? I do want to talk about where not to go.
Let's talk about the dark, shadowy places of bad research.
Ooh, yes. Let's talk about...
We will judge you if your research comes from these locations.
Do you know how many people have walked in the library? Well, I read this on Pinterest, but I can't find it from a reliable source. It's because it's not reliable. Anyway.
People put random links to random pictures. They don't cooperate anymore.
That's what happened. This happened. I had 6 different patrons over a 3-year period. and 3 of them it was the same freaking picture. And and it's like, hi, so I want, and I like literally after the second one, I had to take everyone after that aside of like, so you've done a bad. Pinterest is not the place to get science. And also Pinterest is trying to radicalize you. And they're like, what? It's like, because that's, yes, I use those terms. Pinterest is trying to radicalize you into an anti-vaxxer. And let me tell you how horrible life was before vaccines. And then I pull out my favorite Victorian medical books and show them pox, measles, mumps, the horrors of rubella and mumps. Y'all, mumps did some real disfiguring stuff to people. Mumps was like MMR shots are freaking fantastic.
Oh yeah.
But also as a child, I was absolutely fascinated by the horrors of Victorian medicine. And again, I blame the Hattiesburg Public Library children's section because they had this Time Life series. And it was right there, but you couldn't check them out. So I just go to the library, just look through all the horrible devices and children with rickets in their little legs and little braces. And they're like being pulled by other little children in wagons and stuff. Like, and my mother's, and I'm like, look at all these rickets. She's like, yeah, drink your milk. My mother just never missed a beat. But again, like, that is definitely what I want to like go over is the dark places you should avoid. There are good places on the internet, good, reliable, safe places, and they are not boring, by the way. People think the good, reliable, safe places are boring and they won't tell you any of the good stuff. Like, oh no, if you want conspiracy stuff, we can tell you about real conspiracies, like the CIA, versus the fake stuff of, I hate to break it to some people, but the earth is spherical. Like, I know it's going to break some hearts.
I love watching the videos where they do the experiments to prove it's flat, and it always proves it's round.
Right? Of like, look, I know that you want to believe that somehow you're smarter than, like, I don't know, 99.9% of all human beings that have ever existed, particularly more smart than Greeks and Egyptians who actually did the math before we could go to space. But no, you're not, okay? The Earth is spherical, like all the other planets that you can look through the glass and see.
Isn't that so weird how all the other planets are round but Earth?
But ours is supposed to be flat, like, again. Why are you?
Well, they could be flat facing Earth.
Well, they're just, flat discs flying in the air.
You can see as they go around. Like,
but can you see that with the naked eye and not with lenses carved by people you don't trust?
You can see you can see Venus, actually. And you can just with binoculars over a several month period see the changes in the surface of Venus with regular bird watching binoculars.
Well, the clouds of Venus.
Yeah. So you can see some amount of it. You can also see what is it? That big what is it? They don't call it a tornado. It's a tornado on Jupiter.
Mm.
You know, Jupiter's beauty mark.
That's disappearing.
Yeah, well, you know what? Climate change is everywhere, honey, not just on our planet.
Watch, they'll blame it on space trash.
But I really like we grew up in Oxford, Mississippi, where, you know, I've told you all before about that astronomy tower that they refused to give back to Harvard because of the Civil War or some shit. And anyway, so they would, in order to prove to Harvard they were still using it, they would have the public can come and use our lenses. But like when we would go, they would also say, you can honestly just use binoculars. And they would tell you sometimes on the invitations, bring your binoculars. We'll show you how to use them to look at planets. So again, like, you really can't just use crap you have at home to enjoy the celestial bodies. And we've even remade the basic telescopes that are not telescope. Is it telescope? No. I guess it's the telescope that like Galileo and his counterparts used. Like, yes, children can actually recreate those, which is kind of cute and wild. But again, that is the good and positive side of research. Is how do I make this at home?
Oh, and right before we go, I did go check it real quick. I posted this in our Discord. But for those who are not that didn't go through a whole lot of college, or just English is not strong for them, and it's like, but what are these research papers I'm finding actually saying? This is a great little AI bot that will summarize research papers and their findings in more human readable everyday language.
Yeah, conversational English.
To make it easier to understand these papers.
Cool.
And it's free.
Free, it's my favorite word. So on that note, let's do a little sprinty sprint, and we'll see y'all back here in approximately 10 minutes. Laura's made a new authorship timer, and it's 10 whole minutes long. So
I'm going to be heading out during that sprint. So I will see you guys on the other side, probably, because I still have things I want to say, but I have to clean.
Okay.
See you later, Megan.
Bye.
Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me.
Hello.
Hello. Look at us totally Ferris Buellering our way back.
So CW.
We were here the whole time.
The whole time. And didn't just skate in the last 10 seconds. Oh, fine. Everything's fine. I put a pancake in the toaster oven.
I had McDonald's hotcakes at the airport yesterday.
Num num.
Travel pancakes.
Mm-hmm. Classic. It's the only time I get them is when I'm on vacation, traveling somewhere. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they are.
They were cheaper
I mean,
than
they
I
get
expected.
different when you're traveling.
Yeah. They were cheaper than expected, especially for being in the airport. Only like $6 for hotcakes and sausages, and $7 for hotcakes, sausages, eggs, a biscuit, and a hash brown.
You're right.
Yeah, that's not much. That's not much of a premium for airport.
Yeah, it's like I'll take it.
They must have negotiated a great deal. Yes, I have a pancake sandwich. Ooh. And root beer to go with it. It's so healthy. Nom nom nom.
So, I feel like probably should start with the basis of what is a good source versus what is a bad source.
I think it depends on what you're researching. Is it based in facts or based in folklore?
I find an easy way to figure it out is what's in their financial interest.
Mm-hmm.
Science places it's in their financial interest to be correct, to state things accurately, and so other people cannot call them out, going, "This is all BS." Individual doctors' websites, on the other hand, it's in their financial interest to be right and for you to buy
product.
Yes, as Gloria alluded to in the previous hour, the number one bad source is called Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
I went down a Pinterest rabbit hole today. It was glorious. I finally started making my first ever vampire mood board, like Pinterest board. But it's not like I'm just using it to come up with like looks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pinterest is great for visuals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's designed for.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what Pinterest was designed for.
Yeah. That's fun.
But Pinterest was not designed to be carefully curated scientific information. That's not its deal.
You can pin stuff from any website on Pinterest.
You can even mismatch pictures to the link.
Yes.
Which is how scams are actually operated. So again, Pinterest is meant to be a way to search for and find pictures, images that you're looking for. So it's great for making mood boards. It's great for getting design ideas, decorating ideas. But again, for the most part, most of this is not going to radicalize anybody. I mean, unless we're talking about you have now been radicalized into loving bookshelves, and I'm totally here for it. Everybody, bookshelves are the future.
With a sliding ladder.
Oh gosh, yes, that would be.
I don't know. It will make people make some bad bookshelf ideas, like we're just going to color grade all of our books.
How about where they take their book and they make a bookshelf out of it? And it's like, why did you do that to a good book? Did that book deserve it? What'd that book do to you? Unless we're talking about Tolstoy, in which case I know full well what it did to you. And that's deserved, yeah. But
It was an outdated textbook that I paid too much for.
have a good time.
There's my chair of Russian literature for me to sit on.
Yes. Nude. But, like, places to avoid doing your research. Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Social media is not a good or reliable source, and they certainly are not curating information. What they are doing is selling you the ads. They all operate where you are the product, and they are selling ad space to your eyeballs. They're trying to get you there and make it an addictive experience, or make it, an experience where you're getting lots of dopamine and maybe some serotonin for good times. And while you're having a great time, or at least a satisfying time, they're then going to sell ads to you. That is literally how social media operates. Is you are the product. And so whatever will get you to stay on there longer, whatever will get you to interact more. So the more inflammatory, the more questionable, the more likely you're actually to be exposed to some real questionable materials, because they want a rise out of you.
Here's perfect Pinterest.
So Spence says Noah wanted to make dice boxes out of books, so he went to the secondhand store and said, "Give me all your racist hardbacks." Good job. Good job. So, again, I really, like, if you see something on, say, Facebook that you're like, that can't be true, can it? Do not click the link. Again, it's a trap, okay? To quote Admiral Akbar, it's a trap.
It's a trap!
Instead, go to Google and put in the question, and then instead of just clicking on the, any of the top 5 links, really look at that first page of links and see if you see any reliable sources among that first page.
Skip the ones that say sponsor.
Yes.
Yes. She is so upset at these birds. They are so rude.
She's chittering at them.
Oh, yeah.
By
See
the way,
that tail?
Tom, there's some echo going on from you. Ooh, that tail. Her tail is her tell. So you tell when she's excited, is suddenly that tail does like this weird little spasmy thing.
And she's just tapping out Morse code as she is chirping at this bird that she's just like, I will come out there and kill you later.
Can't believe you won't let her go out there to yell at the bird, Tom. Rude.
And she is Miss Kravitz.
She is Mrs. Kravitz. So, again, like, I would like to bring up one more time, and I know that, like, I'm pretty confident anyway, that most of the people in the chat, and most of the people who will ever watch this, know already everything I'm saying. They already know it. They don't need to hear it. But just in case there's somebody who comes through later who needs to be reminded, there are fairly reliable resources out there, including like the CDC, the National Institute of Health, the National Institute of Mental Health. If you're a millennial, you might recognize them. NIM. No, they're not trying to make all rats psychic. It was like, I was how old? I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
When I finally learned that the secret of NIM was the National Institute of Mental Health. Like, wait, what? It's like you're not watching The Secrets of NIM. Boy. But nevertheless, my point is that there are fairly good, reliable, and when I say that, what I mean is like the CDC Sometimes various pages say on a communicable disease will change a little bit. And that has to do with as they find out or are able to prove more things scientifically, they're going to adjust, which is exactly how science should be. Science, as the technologies improve, as they're able to conduct more studies, as they're able to add women to the studies, yeah, the scientific research quality will improve over time. And so, yes, expect some updates. When I was a child, the incubation period on chickenpox was, let me try to remember, it was back then, it was 3 to 9 days. The CDC has now updated that information for what it is now in the 2020s. It is not, they no longer say 3 to 9 days to incubate chickenpox. Although thankfully, most kids are not ever going to get chickenpox because they're actually going to get the chickenpox vaccine, which means they will no longer ever be susceptible to shingles. I really wish I had been able to get the chickenpox vaccine when I was a kid so that I wouldn't be worried about getting shingles as I get older. But that is my reality. Tom, your mic or something keeps feedbacking my voice.
Let's see if this works better now.
So again, I just want to point out, I know that pretty much everybody's heard this, but I'm mentioning this just in case somebody comes along later and watches this. And they genuinely want to know how other writers research and what a research reference librarian would say. And so that's why I'm mentioning these things. I don't mean to be harping on the same thing again and again, but I'm really trying to just make sure that that information, when we say, oh, surely everyone knows that information. No, do not assume that. Not everybody knows everything. So again, take a look at the reliable resources. Where are they getting their money? So one of the things we did want to talk about is, why does the U.S. government want you to get vaccines? Because it said, again, we're still getting that feedback, Tom. As I said, it's looking at where's the money coming from and why are they then trying to sell you on this? So why is the U.S. government, specifically the CDC, trying to sell people on vaccinating themselves and their children, and preferably their pets? And the reason why is because if you get sick with whatever disease you could get a vaccine for instead, it costs so much more to the U.S. economy. Both you'll be sick, so you won't be able to work. You're sick, and that's going to rack up medical bills. You may end up having to declare medical bankruptcy. All these things are a drain on the U.S. economy. So it is in the U.S. government's vested interest to encourage people to get vaccinated whenever possible, whenever it would be advisable for them. Like if you are immunosuppressed, maybe not necessarily, but if a vaccine would work best for you, it's in the U.S. government's best interest to encourage vaccinations because you are far less likely to get sick. And if you do get sick, you are still far less likely to have a severe illness. And so you're not as likely to rack up a lot of medical bills and essentially be a drain on the economy. That is what the U.S. government is concerned about. Also, if you can get a vaccine for it, it has killed people. Whatever
it's killed a lot of people.
It's killed some people, for sure. And it may be just old and sick people. You don't know. You might. So here's one. I don't want to call it a fun fact because it's not fun. But in the height of the pandemic, there was a whole bunch of toddlers who got so sick that many of them either passed away or they had to get liver transplants. Now, they know now that the adenovirus was one of the common factors. But now it turns out, after doing even more studies and testing blood and testing tissue samples that they took during the liver transplants and stuff, that they found in every one of these, the toddler did not just have the adenovirus. They had anywhere between 3 and 4 viruses currently raging in their immune system at that time. That essentially each time these toddlers were in a perfect storm of viral exposure. And that is why they got hepatitis, and so essentially had to have an emergency liver transplant. And if they weren't able to get a liver transplant, they succumbed to their illness, is what I'm saying. I'm trying to be gentle because I know Spence might be listening and she has sweet little babies. And also Carrie. And I don't want to upset anybody, but that's what they found out. So at first they were saying adenovirus, and now they're saying adenovirus and several other viruses, the common viruses, not rare stuff. But again, it's in the government's best interest if we can vaccinate people, vaccinate children, so their immune system can actually mount a quick and effective defense rather than them get that person or child getting very, very sick and needing hospitalization. The government is not trying to track people through vaccines. You know what? If anybody wants to track you through, this thing. You take it everywhere. You never leave it.
Even in the bathroom.
You will take it to the bathroom. You will drive back to the house if you realize you left it and go pick it up.
You keep it charged.
You leave your Bluetooth and your location tracker on this thing all the time so that your Burger King app will work. This is tracking you. This is tracking you from cell tower to cell tower. You don't want to be tracked? Turn the tracking devices off on this phone. Also, if you don't want to be tracked, and I understand as writers, let's be honest, we're going to look up some highly questionable stuff. And it's if you don't know that person as a writer and you're looking up their browser
response times in certain cities,
then there is a browser for you. Tom, would you like to sing the praises of the Tor browser?
I mean, it is one essentially made to not be tracked.
Specifically made for academics and students living in countries with what is the good word for this, Tom?
Restrictive.
Thank you.
Internet.
So, Tor browser was literally created to help people who are trying to do research, but who live in countries where the governments have essentially restrictive access to the internet. Is it only used for that? No, because you know what the number one thing the internet's used for? Prawn. Everything is prawn. And you know what I'm really saying.
There is a musical about this.
That is the number one thing probably even Tor browser is used for, is to go look at pictures of naked people. But nevertheless, I have used it effectively. I've used it at work, at the library. I've also demonstrated it for people who are just I just don't want to be tracked. I'm concerned. And it's we at the library, if you use our computers, we're not tracking people. And I know this because at a certain point, I then ended up working on the other side of that, where I was the one who was fixing the computers and adjusting the software and stuff. And it's no, these things literally re-image every night. There's nothing we're not tracking any patrons.
And it's on both, you can get it for both your computer as well as your phones.
Mm-hmm. So again, so I showed those patrons how to open up Tor browser and how to use it even on our government computers of yes, it is within your right to use these. But as said, I know that there are reasons why a writer would be, because again, they're like, I promise I'm not trying to kill people, but I just really need to know how to kill characters with common gardening tools. Like,
What do certain blood spray patterns look
right?
like?
And what does it look like when you trowel someone? Like, like, tell me about I need to describe the damage, So I understand as writers, it's like, oh Lord, don't let me get in a car accident. Let me see my browser history. So again, I'm going to mention Tor browser. Consider Tor browser. Please don't do illegal things. Please do not do nefarious things. I would really just like to caveat that. Please don't. We would really love it if you could be like a cool citizen of the world and not, a psychopath, sociopath. But, nevertheless, we're still going to share the information. And yes, I believe you can access several parts of the dark web through the Tor browser.
Mm-hmm.
How the dark web works. Okay. It's called dark because you can't use search engines to find it. It's really more like how speakeasies in the 1920s worked in American Prohibition, where you already have to know the location. You need to have a general idea of like where that door is located. And also, if they're going to ask for a password, you would need to know how to get in. But once you're in, you're in. So, Kitty, what are you doing? Oh, I don't want to know. But again, just keep this in mind. With the dark web, most people do not have a great memory for web addresses. So they're going to write it down. So your whole point about being anonymous, are you really that anonymous if you have a little notebook with all your web addresses of the dark web written down? Okay, you live your life. But just understand, you're probably not half as smart as you think you are. Which is not to say, like, you can't go to the dark web, or I'm trying to tell you not to. There are some cool things on there. There's also a lot of dumb things. There's a lot of QAnon crap. There's a lot of people just trying to shake people down for money. It's, whatever humans are capable of, that's what you're going to find on the dark web.
If you want to see somebody else go on the dark web and show you the sites, there's a YouTuber called Some Ordinary Gamer. He used to do it every Sunday.
Yeah. There's people have actually written articles on how to get started in the dark web. Cool. That's fine. But again, I would really like to caution people to be smart about it. So for instance, use your Tor browser partly so that you won't be racking up cookies. Because yes, you can be tracked. And you need to be aware of that. If you are like, I don't quite know how browsers and the internet work, then probably avoid places where they may do more nefarious things like tracking and possibly installing little bits of software on your computer to use it as a mirroring site. That is a real thing that can happen. So again, just be a little smart about it. And if you're not sure, definitely err on caution and use the Tor browser. Tom, do you have more to say? The echoing stopped, so I'm happy.
If I had a little more energy, I'd find there is a little more complex to truly get around all government censorship. Interestingly, BBC is the one who put out the how to use the additional apps you need. But Tor browser is a great start. If you just don't want to be tracked, you don't want stuff coming back, if you don't want your Google searches to be heavily influenced, because that was where I actually thought Gloria was going to talk about next, was create a Google search email address and account so that Google does not think this is the kind of stuff you're always looking for.
All right. There's a reason you want to do this. Okay. All right. Well, first I wanted to talk about Tor browser and stuff, the dark web, before I talked about how to research smart. Here's how this goes. You need to set up an email address, like through Gmail, that is separate from your personal email address and or your work email. And there's a really good reason for this. Let's be honest. On your personal Google account, more than likely you are Googling stupid shit. Like, yeah, I'll be honest. I have Googled Chris Evans' penis before. Look, he was the one who slipped it out on the internet. I wanted to see the picture. I just want to know what everyone else knows about his penis, okay? But I do not need that crap showing up when I'm doing professional research. And so I have a professional research email account that I have. Okay, so you can have multiple email accounts, Google accounts set up on your phone, as well as your browser. Like, you can have that. And you can switch in between. It's very easy to switch in between. Yes, Google could figure out that, you have access to all these. But what you're trying to do is have Google not show you stupid shit like you're interested in Chris Evans' crotch. Have you also ever wanted to know his reading list? No. Stop talking about Chris Evans when I'm looking up, philosophical reading lists. But because Chris Evans has not only slipped his penis out on the internet, he's also talked about his favorite philosophical books. It's going to color your research. Like, literally, when you Google a question, anything about Chris Evans is now more likely to pop up, even though you're like, I really do not care what this actor thinks about anything, let alone philosophers of the 18th century France. But if you are looking up French philosophers and Chris Evans has ever said anything about it, it'll show up. So you need to separate out your silly human searches that, we all do this. I also if Megan comes in to says hi to me and is like, hey, Gloria, did you hear about the panda slipping on its butt at the so-and-so zoo yesterday? And I'm like, no, I have to go look at this. I'm looking that up on my personal Google account. Because again, when I'm doing my professional research, I switch accounts to my professional account. So I get good curated lists for my search engine's results rather than panda butt slips. Because Google's like, but you're into pandas and butts. It's like, I am trying to research China in the 16th century. Stop sending me pictures of 16th century drawings of pandas. That has nothing to do with this, Google. But Google's like, but you were interested in panda butt slips. So that is why you want to have a professional research account separate from your personal account where you look up just random, hippo eating butt memes. Maybe I have looked that up recently. Have you not seen that one where the hippo is biting on another hippo's butt and it's like when Bae gets out of the shower? No, Laura? Am I going to have to send this to you? It's really cute. I'll put it in Megan's hippo channel and tag you.
All righty.
But yeah, I have looked it up again to share with other people because they too have never seen the hippo. It's not like actually biting the butt. It's just more like resting their mouth on another hippo's butt, and it's funny. And the meme, it's just a cute meme. But again, I do not research that on my professional research account because I don't want these silly results popping up or these essentially. So they're not even silly. Okay, what they are is when they are popular, like these memes that I will often look up, ads and ad space will put those kind of search engine tags in with their ads so that if you're looking up hippo butt bite, their ad will show up that has nothing to do with hippos at all. And that is why you want a professional research account separate. So you're also not getting things that essentially SEO managers have loaded into their websites where the results have nothing to do with what you're looking for. But Google is going to give those more weight because you've searched for them in the past. That's why you want to look those up on, your fun personal account where you're looking up penis sizes, the height of various celebrities, and ridiculous memes. all the like bubblegum popcorn type things they're not important. They're just, you just wondered real quick. Or when is Schmigadoon season 2 coming out? Yeah, like, just the popular stuff that are separate from your serious writer research. Like, look, I'm trying to research how to kill people with garden tools. Do not give me hippo facts right now. Unless it's how hippos can kill people in a garden. Then yes, tell me, Google. How do I... Can I have a random hippo? Could a hippo escape a zoo and go rampaging through a suburb of Ohio? And then would it be mad, or would it just be like, this is my pond now? I don't know. Like, that's what I mean. And like, it's not to criticize anybody's personal Googling. Like, as I said, I wanted to point out how I Google the dumbest stuff, silly stuff, fun stuff. I have Googled in the past on my personal account every flavor of bubblegum to ever exist. Just because I wanted to know. Y'all, garlic gum is a real thing, and I am sad. I know. But my point is, like, there are good reasons to essentially have your writer research account separate from your personal account, where you research, just any old thought that came into your head. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Also, if you are into looking up porn, you definitely want your own separate porn account on Google for that. Like maybe your fantasy name and then prawn@gmail.com, so that you can tell the difference. So you don't start getting, adult websites showing up when you're trying to research various writer things, like, how often do octopus dream? And then they're like, oh, you want octopus? No, I do not want octopus prawn. No, thank you. Oh, you can never unsee that shit.
I got another of your rants to do.
Okay. What you got?
Wikipedia, how to use it correctly. It's not what you think.
All right. Here we go. The genius of Wikipedia is not the actual printed article. The genius of Wikipedia is the reference and citation sections at the bottom of the page. That is the genius of Wikipedia. Those are your resources. When you think about the articles, the actual gray print of the articles, I want you to imagine this, because this is a fairly accurate profile of the kind of person that gets their crap on Wikipedia. Imagine a man wearing a white man wearing a fedora at a party going, well, actually, and then goes into some lecture that, like, hardly any of it is based in fact, and he thinks his shit don't stink. That is the Wikipedia article accuracy. It's not very accurate. But what is accurate is often the citations and the references. So use those. And, I mean, if you want to read the articles, you can. But, again, take them with a grain of salt. Because any man in a fedora in the 21st century is suspicious. I mean,
You got the song in my head.
don't
be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Did you see what I posted to the Instagram group?
No.
Which one?
I think it was like the latest one with the dwarf and the two little.
The mimics.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. It's there. I haven't clicked on.
It's only 20 seconds. Why don't you check it real quick? It's definitely pertinent for anyone who's has watched or is planning to watch Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. but it's very much a be aware whenever you look up research. What is the website's basis? What is it trying to sell to you?
Mhm.
Yeah, there she goes.
All right, that was really funny. You're right. That was worth taking like 20 seconds out of. Don't be a mimic. Don't be a mimic. Don't be. Okay. Okay, Spence. Back when the internet was young and horrifying. Huh. It's not that common, particularly in Japan, but it's not like just a one time only and they filmed it experience thing. Japan is really weird about cephalopods. I'm going to say it. They're just really weird. And they've been weird about cephalopods for what? About 1,000 years, it turns out.
Yeah.
Particularly women and cephalopods. It's part of like ancient Japanese culture, essentially. And it is wild. So I don't know what to tell you. But I did actually do like research over multiple years about this and was like, what the hell? And it turns out like, well, technically there's a precedence for it. And there's a name for this like very sub culture of Japan. So there you go.
There's a name for tentacle hentai?
Yes. Well, actually the culture of, what is it? I don't know. I call it the horny fishwife. But what is it, Tom? It's yeah, more than once. It's like, I mean, there's actually a lot of art that like Japan has mixed feelings about preserving. Because the Japanese government at this point is very conservative. Like, you think our government's conservative? No. We ain't got nothing on Japan. Right.
As has been shown the last few years, the Japanese government is literally being run by a Korean cult.
Yeah.
Korea's finally getting their vengeance on Japan.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. But so they have mixed feelings about preserving this, you know, several hundred to 1,000-year-old artworks with tentacles and women. But I mean, there is essentially some sort of artistic history to this. And yeah, it's a wild ride. But what is it? It's not Gorin. It's I'll have to look it up later because I have partially erased this.
Yeah, it's something we're trying not to make too much about.
But yes, there is a name for this subculture, and you know, anything that survives several hundred years culturally, you know, like even UNESCO was like, we have mixed feelings about making this a UNESCO heritage concept. But for realsies, y'all, like everybody's got mixed feelings. But yeah, it's the horny, lonely fishwife trope essentially, and it's existed for at least 1,000 years in Japanese printed language culture. So it may have actually existed for far longer before you know, they started that they had material that would survive, you know, printed paper that would survive. So yeah, you know what, we've all got spaghetti monsters in our past culturally. Okay, I'm just gonna say it.
Spaghetti?
And so again, like, I don't want people to think I'm trying to judge like whatever you're researching. Look.
Whatever you do, never search for spaghetti and kiddie pool at the same time.
Tom, why? I need to sleep at night, Tom. Why are you like this?
Should I bring back the deep fried spiders?
God, that's practically a palate cleanser at this point. By the way, Laura, you made a lovely author super timer.
Thank you.
Yes, it's definitely time for just a little break. Maybe get something to eat, a nibble, maybe go visit the bathroom.
Pet a puppy.
Pet a puppy.
Hi,
Force
sir.
some cuddles on a puppy or kitty. I love the look on pets' faces when you start running at them like you're going to pick them up.
Like, oh no! Oh no! Force proximity.
I have loaded up the little Amaguri Dino timer as our pellet cleanser. Again, if you haven't had a snack or you don't have anything to drink, now is a wonderful time to get a little drinky drink. We'll see you back here in just a few minutes. Of course, still love Tom's little video, so I'm going to play that first. Me biddy bee. Me biddy 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 bee. Me biddy bee. Me biddy 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 bee. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You've made it to the final hour.
And Roy has started barking because there was a dog that was barking in the hallway.
Well, he's got to join in.
Oh, yeah.
That dog needs to know he's there.
But he also needs dinner to go outside. So. The poor baby.
Oh. Got to go find himself some of that street bread. The delicious.
There you are. Hello.
Look at that adorable face.
I missed you so much, dude.
He's just a muppet.
Yeah. Yeah, I missed you.
Yes.
Oh, no, I can't pick you up, babe.
Oh, ma'am, I need to lead you to the door. We need to go see what that other dog's up to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Also, that street bread's not going to eat itself.
You'd be surprised.
It might. It's like we might even get lucky. It might be covered with ants. So delicious.
Oh, gosh.
Spicy bread.
Did you know gluten is cannibalistic and it will eat itself?
Gluten?
Yeah. So the street bread can eat itself.
Oh, is that it?
If it's glutinous. If it's gluten-free.
Yeah, it just lays there and disintegrates.
Yeah.
Ooh, we got
Passover bread. It's just always there.
Like he's trying to communicate so desperate.
I know.
And he's just very much you're a very slow human.
Yep.
If only you actually understood me. Because wow, you
Go
are
get
so
your
slow.
shoes on right now.
Hey, Spence says I watched a squirrel about the size of Roy grab a piece of bread, also about the size of Roy, and run it up the tree.
It's all mine now.
That's how that squirrel got so big.
Up here, the squirrels just hoard Timbits.
Delicious, delicious Timbits.
AKA donut holes for the uninitiated.
I know, but that's not the same. Timbits are so good.
I know, sir. I know. Okay, I'm gonna go so I can take them outside.
Okay. Especially with
Wait.
a Timbits coffee, a Timmy's. All right. I know during the sprint you told me what we're going to talk about, and I've already forgotten.
Tips and tricks. What are the little things you have learned specifically to do to get the information you're looking for?
Okay. If you're going to Google it, Google responds a lot better. If you think of, you're not trying to speak English to it. You're using the words, the tags, the weighted words, and you are organize them by priority. So, I think like for Laura's question about the length of courtship during Victorian period, I would probably try Victorian courtship length or courting length, and also courting span Victoria or Victorian or just 1800s. And again, like as you see, I'm trying to prioritize the words. I'm not trying to write a whole sentence. Like I've seen people literally type into Google, "Dear Google, where would I find the information on the best kind of casserole to make for Thanksgiving?" Like that wording would work very well on humans, but Google is not a human. Google is an algorithm. And so instead, what you would type in is Thanksgiving casseroles popular or best, or just Thanksgiving casseroles. And then like you're looking for like Southern living, taste of home, maybe Midwest living, country living. I personally recommend avoiding Food Network because they're lying liars, but
They are.
just me. During the break, Megan cleaned up the area around her bookshelves. Very nice. Continue to clean. Very good job. And she now has a granola and a yogurt. Yum, yum.
Oh, and here's another one that I think most people don't know, let alone even the term to use. Google search operators. So this is how you can get Google to use a specific website, or use these terms but exclude these. How to get it to search within certain decades or years. It can do all of that. You just have to know the correct operator to use for it. And here is a very good list and a good website in general for that type of web reference data on how to do this. Here's all the different terms. Here's how to use them in your searches. But like Google does have that data there, but it's like, how do you get to it? And this is what we're talking about, do not make the mistake as well of asking ChatGPT this question and relying on that answer, because ChatGPT is just going with what people say on the internet in general. And as we've learned, most people have bad opinions. That's why we pay scientists to research this and publish their research. This is why you hire professional researchers. Again, so you can find good data, good information, not just what someone pulled out of their opinion from their great-grandmother who said this 40 years ago in a different society and times and culture. And like this also has been very, coming up a lot of, this is not what ChatGPT or any of these natural language bots are for. They are not there to tell you good information. If anything, it's almost a guarantee they will give you bad data. Whatever they respond, that is the wrong answer. It's wow, the numbers. But yeah, I really don't see enough people ever discuss or mention the whole, you put the search terms in order of priority.
Mm-hmm.
And also Google, for the most part, ignores everything you put in past 10 words.
Yep.
You got 10 words to actually get it. If you put in that long sentence, it's just going to return you searches where someone else has written that on a website with that roughly the same search phrase.
Google is very good at giving you the information you're looking for. If you already know the basics of the information, you just don't maybe remember the actual facts. So, for instance, I once Googled, how much does yeast weigh? How much does a teaspoon of yeast weigh? Or how much is a packet of yeast? And Google said, oh, it's this, whatever it was, 7 grams, something. But it did not specify which kind of yeast. Because there's dry yeast, there's granulated yeast, there's cake yeast. There's another kind of wet yeast. I can't remember what it's called. It's not a type I usually work with at all. But there's a bunch of different kinds. Now, after further searching, what I actually had to do was, I think something like dry versus cake yeast weights, I think is what I actually put. And I found that someone else had constructed an entire table equivalency between all the yeasts. So you could actually see the measurement for each one and then how much that each of those weighs in grams. And they did it all the way to 1 pound, which that's wild, but it's cool. But again, if you don't know that there are many kinds of yeast, and Google's like, oh, it's this one, it was absolutely the wrong kind of yeast that it was giving me weights for with my initial search. And it's the only reason I did not make a huge mistake was because I knew, like, hold up, that seems like a lot. Like, that's very heavy yeast. I'm not used to yeast being quite that heavy. And that's because it was giving me for cake yeast, which
is wet.
What is that? I was working. That is not the most common kind of household yeast. So, again, you need some initial information to help Google differentiate. And that is where, this is why humans are still very much necessary for this. This is why people still go to librarians to ask them to help find information, because everybody has access to Google now, or practically everybody. But Google is not a smart thing. It's not a kind of intelligence. It's just mathematics. And also, Google is only good as the resources it has been able to search on the internet. So many websites actually block a fair amount of their website from Google search capabilities, which show you can access it, but it's not going to pop up in Google. So it practically might as well be dark. So again, you got to think about this in terms of ways Google could understand. Google is very much, to me, and the way I word my searches is, how would I talk to a 4-year-old?
Yeah.
4-year-olds are not stupid, but they have limited language, limited vocabulary, and they have limited understanding. However, they can absolutely fetch something in another room if you are very clear about what you want, what it looks like, and where it is located in the other room. They can absolutely do that for you. Heck, they can even go outside to the backyard and go get something and bring it back. Like, 4-year-olds are really great for that. So how would you communicate this thing you want, to a 4-year-old, and start that kind of mindset when you're searching, when you're putting something in the search engine in Google? Is because essentially that is what Google is doing. It's literally going to fetch various websites, and it's like, is this the thing you want? Because it has no true understanding of what the thing, but it's like, well, these words match. Is this the thing you were looking for? And you're like, close. Here, let me figure out another way to word this. Maybe you'll understand better if I tweak my wording a little. However, you might be surprised how successful I've been in the past. Just with a patron coming in a library going, there was this movie I saw once in the middle of the night on TBS about this man who was a sailor who fell in love with the statue of a woman, and then she came to life, and it was really old, and it was in black and white. And I literally typed in what they said. Black and white movie, sailor, statue, woman comes to life. Oh, it's this. It has Godfrey, what's his name in it? I've been looking for 12 years. Well, there you go. That's the movie. That's what it's called. No, we don't have it. Let me check if we have it in the library. Nope, we don't have it. We can ILO request it, or let me look. Is it streaming somewhere? Oh, it is streaming on Roku. Congratulations. If you want, you can just watch it on Roku. So again, like if you think about how you would word that to a person, like your request, but you take out all the participles. As or the, forget those words. And like you just use common phrases, Google more than likely can find that information for you. Tom, any other thoughts?
How about another trick, experienced researchers have is using specific databases and finding those databases. So like, if you want to know who's in a movie, for the most part, yeah, most people still will go first to IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great resource that people try their best to keep up to date with everyone involved in the making of movies and TV shows and those type of media. But there's stuff for all of it. There's stuff for in newspapers. If you want to search newspapers, there are databases of newspapers, and you can search by year and by region.
Good old EBSCOhost.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of these, most public libraries have free access to. If you encounter one that is like for you have to pay to access. A lot of times your library has it for free as part of their service, including like Ancestry.com. All of their databases are free if you search Ancestry at your local library. I just realized, one thing we hadn't mentioned is go to your library to do some of these searches. They have access to these a lot more, especially of these costly, these ones that you have to pay for the service. They will provide it for free to the public if you are at their location.
Yeah, like you literally need to be on their Wi-Fi to access it.
Yeah. Although now some of them, as long as you go through their portal and you have to log in through their portal, you can even do it from home. You just have to have a library card.
Mm-hmm. But for that, you would need to contact your library or go to their website and see if they have instructions on how to do it. If you don't see that, then you would need to call in to ask them how to access, for instance, EBSCOhost, or there's several newspaper databases. I think Gannett may be separate from like the New York Times database of newspapers. And there's a third one, I can't remember, that's like a big newspaper database where you can research. And so like Glenn and Friends, that when he talks about, searching through old newspapers, he is talking about using these databases. That's literally what he's talking about. He's able to access it. And that's what they're using when these historical costumers are talking about researching women's, breast support, brassieres and corsets and whatever. And they're showing you old ads from Victorian times. It's newspapers. More than likely it's from newspaper print. And that is how they're accessing it. And often they don't have to leave their house. They can access it through various libraries, both academic libraries, like their university, if you're part of an alumni association. Often you can access those just with the payment of your yearly alumni membership. Mm-hmm. Or your public library is paying for membership, and you can access either through their portal, or they give you their library login and you can use it from your house, or you have to use it through their library Wi-Fi, but you can do that often parked in your car outside the library building, just using the library Wi-Fi. Like they make sure it'll stretch all the way to their parking lot. So again, there are other resources. Like personally, I hate to leave my house to research. I will admit this. I don't want to drive to the library or even in the parking lot and sit there on a laptop, and I don't want to leave the house. But sometimes you just have to. com.
Um, trying to think what other little tips and tricks we've picked up over the years. Although it is truly like you'd be surprised what local libraries offer.
Oh yeah, you could do a whole lot of search on people and find out who has like warrants out for their arrests in various states.
All for free. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. You might be surprised what memberships your local library is paid for.
And again, it will not be tracked back to you. That is the nice part about it.
Well, some of it, like it just depends.
Yeah. But a lot of the libraries do their best to make sure it is not retained by them or anything they are working with. They do try their best, at least on site.
I mean, in theory.
Yeah. Hence, we're talking about like they re-imaged every night at the local library specifically. So no one can even request who, what are the computer records for the patrons. It's like, we don't have them. They don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, it is a have fun. It's just like recess. If you really want to get the best out of your learning and your research, you got to play with it. Have fun. See what shows up. Do not trust the first response Google has for you in a search.
Or even the first 5.
Yeah.
I think also about references, I would point out things have changed a lot from when I was young. So long ago, it was the previous century. In that there are wonderful websites set up where you can just plug in all the available information about a source, and it will then organize your citation according to whatever you tell it. Like we're talking APA or Chicago style or whatever your requirement is for your class, or however you like to look at the citation, it will go ahead and organize it that way and then give it to you in an easy to copy format. So when I was young, so long ago, it was the previous century, if you turned in a paper where they required you to cite sources and you incorrectly organized your citation, you'd get marked off on your paper. And that was back when we actually had to do it by hand, children. So long ago. So now you don't even have to worry about that because you can just plug it into any of these websites that will actually organize your citation. They'll even organize it, but like, are you running on, what was it? Chicago style 14th edition or 17th edition or whatever it is now.
Oh,
like,
God.
yes. It'll do it. It's great.
I think we may be getting towards the end.
I don't even know what next week's episode is going to be about.
We'll have to come back Monday to find out.
Could be about Substack. I don't know.
Or since we've talked about a little bit here, should we next week bite the bullet and talk about Chat GPT?
Is that what you want to talk about?
Why not?
Okay, give your pitch.
A personal writer's roundtable you've always wanted. How to use ChatGPT as a substitute for your friends.
Okay, questionable, but okay.
But it's the whole how do you use these advanced algorithms to actually help us with our writing? Because as much as journalists and questionable to use that term journalists are trying to say, oh, the AI bots will replace all the creatives. No, they won't. They're really not that good at being creative. But they are very good about sparking creative people's ideas and creativity.
Mm-hmm. True.
And that is what it's really useful for, is getting you a place to start, to springboard off of. And just like, what is a writer's room really for, but having a diverse group of people who have a diverse group of backgrounds and life experiences coming together to talk about the same subject, to figure out how you want to create this story, how to maximize the audience emotional response and keep them interested. And that is what it is good at. It is not good at originality. It is not good at actually coming up with a decent story. It's not even that great at phrasing, but it's good at bouncing ideas off of giving you an alternate way to view something. And, just like Photoshop does not replace photographers, it did not replace artists. It just is an additional tool. Let's talk about how to use these AIs as the tools they are, not the, doomsday end of the world that, they're trying to sell in news.
Yes, it is a great sounding board. When I was a girl, so long ago, it was the previous century, they used to say, I used to have mothers tell me that when they were growing up in the 50s, it was thought that reading books too much would ruin a child's mind. And that children just need to go out and play and quit reading so much. And now they say that spending too much screen time watching TV and on smart devices will ruin a child's mind. It's always something. I came across recently a newspaper article from the mid 1800s that talked about children spending too much time playing with their friends rather than doing chores will ruin a child's mind. For reals. That when children aren't doing chores, they should just be sitting quietly in a corner waiting to be given orders in order to keep their mind fresh.
It'll wear out.
For reals. So, what I have really learned, and the reason I bring it up in reference to ChatGPT and other AI, I say that with quotation marks.
And, Mid-Journey.
Yeah, is they always say, whatever new technology is going to ruin minds. They used to say television, watching too much television would ruin young minds. Not that it would make you wear glasses, which that is a real thing. But that just watching television, even from a safe distance, even like a dim TV, will just ruin your mind, not your eyesight. So I have really just come to expect that it's the same old BS, but like the different, devil in the technology. And so, like, again, AI is just a tool. Just like pens and hammers and paper, just like books, brooms, whatever, they're all just tools. What we do with it is important. That's what matters, is what we do with it. Are we using it to help ourselves and the world to be better, to be safer, to, be safer for the next generation, to be cleaner for the next generation? Or are we using it just for puerile, which there's nothing wrong with a little bit of puerile, let's all just have a good time.
We all need breaks from the world.
Everybody needs a break. But, like, it's just a tool. I could dance with a broom, or I could sweep things. Or I could try to get that bird out of the house with the broom. Turns out that is the best way. One of my babysitters, nannies, whatever you want to call her, when I was very young, when I was like 3 and 4 years old, like, a bird flew in her house. And she just picked up a broom. It's like, this is how you do it. Just watch me, children. And she swept the ceiling of the broom out into the open door. And when this happened to us a couple of years ago, probably almost a decade ago now, I was like, Tom, watch me. I'm going to show you how my nanny taught me. And I swept the bird out of the house. It's just a tool. You can hurt people with a broom, or you could sweep a bird out with a broom, or you could sweep the floor out with the broom. But it's just a broom. It doesn't really do anything on its own. So that is how I think of any new technology. And, once upon a time, people were doom and glooming the invention of brooms. Oh, it's terrible. It'll sweep all the health out of your house. That dirt, that makes children strong. Oh, you should be on your hands and knees, sweeping with your hands to get all the dirt out of your house. You should be using a broom. That's going to make people weak. I mean, literally, y'all, I am taught, this is true. There used to be doom and gloom after the invention of brooms, both the modern corn broom and then before that, the sorghum broom. And every version of brooms, including reed brooms, you name it, every single time it was going to bring about the ruination of women, children, humans in general, whatever, any new technology, and they doom and gloom it because it gets a rile out of people. Because people are easy to scare. They're easy to get emotion out of. Also, it feels a little thrilling to think, oh, is this finally when the world ends? It's a little thrilling. The world never ends. The world keeps
Although I will admit, I am starting to think we need to update the story of the boy who cried wolf and how he became a talk show host later on.
I'm okay.
Because, yeah, it's like you're not holding those responsible for all their bad predictions. You're just like, you were wrong about all of those. Why should I trust you now? Oh, but this time I'm right. Really? After 100 wrong times, this is going to be it. I don't know.
It's not that everybody keeps believing me even after 100 times where he's wrong. It's that he keeps going from town to town with a new set of people till they go, nobody believes you. And then he moves to the next town. Except now they can do it with television. So there's always more people to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So seemingly he could do this forever. But it's really just that he's got a turnover. Because, like, how about all those people who were in a QAnon and like, I can't believe QAnon betrayed me. I mean, literally, we have the whole, what is it? Cheetahs ate my face.
Mm-hmm.
And then the darker, more depressing COVID ate my face subreddits. I can't believe this dangerous thing that I thought would never hurt me totally turned on me and was not loyal to me. Also, AI is not really that intelligent still.
It's not really It's just
artificial. It's not really intelligent.
It's an algorithm.
But that's not actual intelligence. It's getting closer, but we are still a fair ways off, and I don't mean like 5 years. We are a ways off, partly because we just simply do not have the technology to really copy a complex neural net, like how even the simple brains of, like, say, a cat
Or
um,
bees.
or bees work. Like, we just do not have the technology to properly mimic um, a neural net, like even a little bee brain. We're just not there yet. I mean, we will eventually get there, but we are not there right now. And we will not be there anytime soon. So, in the meantime, use the tools. You know, I used to have people tell me when I was younger, and it was well after, like, my whole family suspected that I had ADD. And I suspected it as well, because, like, I was going to school in the education program to be trained, and there's a whole special education subcurriculum that all of us went through. It's multiple classes, multiple three, full CEU classes that we all went through to, essentially learn how to be better teachers for our students with special needs, and not just the ones that, like, maybe have learning disorders or other things that make it difficult for them to learn, but also our exceptional students on the other side of the bell curve. Okay, so we were going through, and I'm learning all about, like, how to recognize ADD and ADHD in students. And, like, yes, it totally reminded me of my then husband, but it also reminded me of me. Oh dear. Everett says, I know someone who thinks Swiffers are responsible for tearing up floors. Oh dear, oh dear. So I suspected for a while before I got a diagnosis that I had ADD, or actually I thought I had ADD, and it turned out, oh no, the psychologist was like, no, you definitely have ADHD. Very hyperactive. Like, I did not realize, because also I had grown up with this myth that girls are not hyperactive; it's just the boys who are hyperactive. It's like, no, you're a twitchy little person. You're hyperactive. And
Like your mother.
But even though I suspected while I was still going to college that I had ADD or ADHD, this was before the combination, before they combined them all into just ADHD. Everybody said, well, but if you get on the medication now, you'll never know if you could accomplish it without. And I bought into that bullshit. Okay. And then after I got on the medication, after I graduated and I went back to college to just take some courses I wanted to take for my own enjoyment on the medication, I realized, oh my God, is this how, like, regular people are? This is fantastic. What was holding me back? It was just this stupid bullshit about, oh, but you won't know if you could accomplish it on your own. Excuse me, but the medication makes it so I don't have to try so hard to do the minimum just to survive. Again, it's just a tool. Medication is just a tool like every other tool. It's like, yes, you could get that hammer into the wood with a hammer. I mean, you could get that nail into the wood with a hammer, or you could hammer it in with a rock. But guess what? It's a hell of a lot easier with a hammer, with a tool made for hammering in nails, versus a random rock you found on the street. It's a lot harder when you're using the wrong tool, or you're trying to do it with your bare hands. Like, I'll just use my shoe. Yeah, that's not going to work. You're about to lose a soul on there. And, like, again, like, to resist using a tool that is available is just foolhardy. Life is already hard enough. Why are we trying to make it extra hard? It's ridiculous. Take the convenience. I promise you, people 1,000 years ago, if you were like, well, you can keep walking everywhere, or you could get in this car, we could get there in 5 freaking minutes, they would be like, hell yeah, let me get in the car. Oh, it has air conditioning too? This is fantastic. Like, I guarantee you that not a one of them would hesitate. They would just be like, wait, it'll get me to the next town in 5 fucking minutes. Why wait? Get in that. We're going. Let's go. Let's go. Get the horse started under that engine. So again, a tool is just a tool. It's no more. It's no less. And this whole doom and gloom, it is just to rile people up. It is not to help people.
I mean, to give you another sense of, it's going to replace them. After 2020, and we've seen how little people in power care about basic workers who are working for minimum wage jobs. If they could replace cashiers at all the restaurants, they would have. And yet here's still all the cashiers, even at the fast food restaurants like McDonald's. They're still there. If they could have replaced them, they would have then.
Mm-hmm.
And don't think they didn't try. They did, but the results were so much worse. It is still worth paying someone.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a tool and it's still in development.
So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. ChatGPT, how to use it as your very own personal writer's room, how to use it as a soundboard, how to use it to help inspire you or give you ideas or get you started on the right path that appeals to you. Again, it is just a tool like every other tool.
And how to use it with some of these other AIs out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like one thing I have not really seen anyone mention, but I was planning to try out is, so like I definitely have problems sometimes with describing things. So like I would ask ChatGPT, how would you describe something? And then it gives me at least a starter and I can modify that a little bit. And then I can feed that into one of these visual AI bots of now give me a scene that looks like this, or give me a person that looks like this, and see with that. And then I can iterate off of that and still work on creating my vision though, and then further modify it. But they can all work together, but it still takes a person to direct them. They cannot all do it themselves. You cannot, as you've seen, even in Star Trek, with the holodecks and stuff, they have pointed out we have holo novel writers who still have to create the stories. You can't just tell it, create me something like, it's like, you see what happens. That's where, you get Moriarty on the holodeck. But I want Moriarty to be smart enough to take on, Data. So the computer's going to try, but it doesn't actually know how to write a compelling, interesting story for it. It just knows how to make it difficult enough. No, you need another creative mind to create something of interest. Yeah, these are tools. Let's show you how to use them a little bit better.
So we hope to see you next week. It's going to be grand one way or another. Thank you all so much for coming. And for those who would like to hang out in the Discord chat, we will be there at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 8 p.m. Central Time. Bye, everybody.